Good morning, CLC. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this service. And so now we come to our inner healing experience time. I invite you in this moment to just take this moment to relax. Take in a few deep breaths, putting your day and your week aside. Allow your body to be still and calm. And allow your mind to be present in this moment and be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own. For your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. in visualizing this idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, in seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept, knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude and saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
So spontaneity. Well, this is week 6 of a 9-week series on the basics of our teaching. And then we're going to come back in March and have more basics. And it's all basics, really. You brand it as one thing or another, but all year long, wherever we may roam, it's all about the science of mind. That's what we do here. We are a religious science center teaching the science of mind. And there's a little book called 10 Ideas That Make a Difference by Ernest Holmes that is out of print, but we've got PDF copies if you want one. And this is what Sarah's leading the book study on through the rest of February. I think it ends on March 2nd. So you can follow along, and her study of this will cover, like the next one this coming week, will cover the chapter that I'm sort of dealing with today, you see. So she sweeps up the pieces from the Sunday talk is really how this looks. But today is about spontaneity and preparation for spontaneity. That sounds nuts, doesn't it? Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, talks about how things spontaneously come into form. But back of the form is the preparation and the formless. Things come out of the unseen into the seen, out of the unfelt into the felt, and so on. The senses register things when they occur where the senses can pick them up. But before all that, back of all of that, in the silent place of the Most High, as Scripture would put it, there's something happening. There's a preparation going on for something to occur in form. A way of managing that preparation is called prayer. We'll be speaking about prayer in the next couple of weeks, dealing with it directly, head on, although today you're going to hear at least a couple of prayers, and as well as doing what you do in your own spiritual life. So a way of managing the formless coming into form is through turning the attention to prayer. Another way of doing it doesn't rule out prayer, it's kind of around prayer, is mindfulness, such as Thich Nhat Hanh taught. Being present in the moment. I know that sounds like jargon. What does it mean to be present in the moment? I'm always present in the moment. It's the moment, and here I am. But do I know that? No, see, a lot of times we're preparing for stuff when really what we ought to be doing is just standing there taking it all in. I get it tickled when I see pictures of well, the one that came to mind was the Pope was visiting someplace. And he's in what they call the Pope Mobile, which is, I didn't make that up. It sounds disrespectful and all, but it's, what he's in. And so here he comes. and he's waving to the crowd. This picture I see. And lining the streets are thousands of people, all of them looking at their phones. And I'm thinking, now I'm old, look at me, I'm old school, okay? So a guy like me is supposed to be kind of cranky about stuff like that. These young, newfangled contraptions, these young people, rah, rah, rah. But still in all, I mean, it could have been a Kodak back in the day. It's like, it's the Pope. Look at him. You are seeing him. This probably won't happen again in your lifetime. You would have to go to some great lengths to have this repeat. And that's another thing that people tend to do, besides look at him or something through their phone, is they think about, when will this happen again? It's happening now. Be present with it. Be present with it right now. That's mindfulness. That's how we help shape what's coming out of the formless into form. When it comes into form is where the spontaneity comes in, because stuff jumps up when you're not expecting it. Prayers get answered in between times. Things occur, seeds sprout that you planted long ago, or seeds sprout like a volunteer crop, as they call it, which you planted several planting seasons ago and forgot about, or that birds dropped there, you know, that fell off the truck or whatever, and things sprout up, and there they are, and you don't remember directly having planted that idea, and so it appears to be a spontaneous emergence into form, and for all intents and purposes it is, but something happened of a causal nature. Back of every effect is a cause, and some cause was engineered so that this effect might occur. The effect then becomes the cause of future effects. So much so that when you stand back and look at cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, you realize that they all kind of blend together, and that effects are causes of future effects, and causes are effects of prior causes, and so forth. And it really doesn't behoove us to try to isolate exactly when things start or all of that. Is to say there's a flow. There's a flow. There's a flow, and I choose to deliberately, consciously step into the midst of that flow and allow it to process through me. I choose to live in the anticipation of good. I choose to live in the constant supply of creative ideas. I choose to live in unconditional love. I choose to live in these various ways, all of which are pre-existing energies that are flowing through me, around me, and now I step consciously into the midst of these things, and what's the payoff? Because we always want to know, okay, then what happens? Life works better. Life is better. All of us who are engaged in a teaching like this long for a better world. All of us engaged in a teaching like this have a selfish aspect to what we're doing here. It's not all just give it away. It's the fact that when people know who they are, my life gets better. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing like gnarly or small or petty or greedy about that, saying when people get along, my life works better. The world's life works better. People drive better, for crying out loud, on the street, okay? People are nicer to each other so when they know who they are. When people are mindful, they're more creative. When they're more creative, they're more interesting. They provide more of a milieu for us. They provide more of, I don't know, kind of a creative environment in which things can occur. These singers who come up here on Sundays, you know, have to choose to do that and put themselves out there, and not just to those of us in the room, but to potentially billions of people on social media. They're all heading for the exits now, the singers. But no, it's, right? That takes nerve. That takes nerve. But it makes it interesting. Makes it interesting for the people at home. So planned, progressive spontaneity means that we start imagining what it is we would prefer to have happen and put our emotional energy on it, and something occurs. And here's the thing, life will come and get you. Life will come and get you at what you're doing, and it will tap you on the shoulder, and it will say, you have been preparing in some way that you may know, and in other ways that you don't know. You've been preparing for the next thing that your life is going to be about. You've been preparing to change the quality of life for all people everywhere by the work that you've been doing, and you didn't know it, but here is that new work. Here is that new work. So, I thought about what I was going to say on this next piece, and then I'm sitting there listening to Celebrate Life, and that's the song, for those of you who may be new with us or who have forgotten, that before the pandemic and when we were doing Sundays of a regular nature twice a week, we sang that. We stood up and we sang that. We'll do that again, because it's a fun little song, and it's got a bouncy little rhythm to it. And typically I play congas on it. They didn't ask me to today. I don't know. I think I'm out of practice or something. I don't know. It's this, there's some reason, I'm sure. There's a good musical reason for why I wasn't invited to play congas. Anyhow, so I'm thinking back. Creative Life Sundays. You know what's a big part of our Sundays for a long time? At least 4 times a year. We have blood drives. Blood drives here. And blood is really needed. And if you can, there are blood centers in every neighborhood. There's one right up off of 242 by the college there. 1960. But we had blood drives here. And we had the blood mobile, only they don't like you to call it that. It's like the Pope mobile. They don't want you to call it the blood mobile. It's the collection coach. The collection coach. And they're not nurses with needles, they're phlebotomists. Fair enough. They do great work. Do you know a man by the name of Dr. Charles Drew developed the idea of blood collection, where blood could be stored, plasma could be preserved, and you could actually have portable delivery, collection from donors, and delivery to where it was necessary, be it a disaster site or a battlefield. He was an African-American gentleman from Washington, D.C., who went to college principally in Canada at McGill, got his medical license, achieved so much, multiple degrees and licensures and so forth, although the American Medical Association wouldn't let him join because of the color of his skin. But he was invited to create something called Blood for Britain during the Second World War, and it was there that he developed the technology with a team of people, but he was the leader of the team, developed the technology whereby blood could be stored, so that when the war was over, the American Red Cross made him the head of their blood collection work, for which they are principally known. Even though when he gave blood, it had to be stored on a different shelf in a different place than that of a white person. And as a result of that, after a year and a half, I think, with the Red Cross in a leadership position, he resigned in protest. And he perished at a young age in an automobile wreck the same year as later in the year the Red Cross changed its policy. Because there was zero scientific evidence that there was a difference between the blood of a white person and the blood of a black person. Zero difference. It was a matter of what? Prejudice, a matter of racism. But I bring him up to you because I didn't know that. It didn't really occur to me who might have created these things. I did kind of think it was probably in wartime. But I didn't realize it was only in the 1940s. And I didn't realize that it was an African-American gentleman who did this, and I think that should be told. And so sadly, when these stories are told, and I'll have more of them for you as Black History Month continues, but so sadly, many of these stories, there's a sad ending to it. Well, there was this triumphant moment of great discovery or invention or something, and it was discredited. And if we're going to tell the story, we have to tell the whole story. so that we can begin to change things. But I bring him up not only because of who he was and what he did, but it's also germane to me to the idea of spontaneity, because this man didn't know what he was planning for. See, he loved medicine. He was being trained in the medical arts. He took an interest in the circulatory system. It could have been any system in the body. This is the one that he fastened onto, and life came and got him and tapped him on the shoulder and said, England needs you. Well, he'd been educated in Canada, so you can see some connection there, but still in all, why him? Because he had what life needed at that moment. He had the precise combination of talents and abilities and affinities and interests that life needed. And so do you. And so do I. And so does every living, breathing soul on this planet. Have some combination of things that life needs for the next step. You might not get rich at it. You might not become famous at it. But you might. And even if you don't, you will be a pillar in the temple. We already are. We just don't know it. Because right now, see, we look at things in a linear way. We're all preparing for the future, but the future that we were preparing for yesterday is what's happening now. The future that we were preparing for back in school has been happening all along, and so forth. We're living our life right now in full. Yet there is another step, and a step after that, and a step after that, and then God knows what, really. And so I read this thing where scientific answers for small children. I thought this is perfect for me, because I need some of this stuff in bite-sized pieces that doesn't require knowledge of like algebra. And so it was a child of indeterminate age wrote into this science panel and said, so, all good questions start with so. So, I look at the night sky, does it go on forever? And so the scientists, because they had a certain word count to fill, had to work their way up to the answer, starting with the fact that we have an atmosphere and it's 20 miles, extends 20 miles out, and then there are other heliospheres and tropospheres and God knows all kinds of things around them. And then there's space. And yes, yes, space, so far as we know. Now, we don't know for sure, and they hedge their bets. We don't know. We've got the Webb telescope up there now, and it shows us a lot more than we saw before, but it doesn't show us everything. But basically, yes, scholars agree at this point that space goes on forever. You know, there's the horizon of what we can see, and then there's something beyond that. So when they talk about the Big Bang having created the universe, it created the observable universe. It created the known universe of galaxies and all their contents, but beyond all that is something else. We live in the midst of infinity right now. We live in the midst of immortality right now. We are everywhere all at once, but the attention is localized here. And that foreverness, in every direction, out from us, we maintain was created by one mind, one God, one law, one element, one far-off divine event to which all creation, that's Tennyson, but it's one mind made all of this with everything in it. And this planet alone is filled with stuff. This room alone is pretty interesting, you know? Just you look at your hands, the surface of, you think about what's in your mind right now, and it's a lot. Now imagine everything, all generated out of one mind. And that's not all. Not only is all of it generated out of one mind, it's all connected to each other. Every point of it is connected to every other point. So an idea goes out there, and it meets up with a similar idea, or it meets up with the need for that idea. You see, a request is made and an answer arrives, not from outside the system, but from within the system, from the patterning intelligence working through this infinite number of points and lines all crisscrossing each other. We deal with this all the time in the way that, like, going back to your cell phone for a moment, it's like when you pick up your phone and you push some buttons or you hit one of your contacts or whatever, you have a straight line to that person and you can talk to them or you can text them or you can email them or you can do all kinds of stuff now that, just on your handheld. But this is part of, 6 billion of these devices, all working through fiber optic networks, working through satellite uplinks, working through all kinds of information passing through this room right now, but you don't need it. You need to text, "What's for lunch?" You need to look and see what you need to look and see. You're making specific use of an infinite system. Been doing this all along. The technology trots along behind, tries to keep up. Back in the day of party lines and the phone on you see in the old movies, to hold the thing and this, and before that, the telegraph, and before that, the Pony Express and on back. It was all a form of the same thing, a connection of intelligence in an infinite field. And why I'm bringing this up is because if you have information I need, I'm going to call you or text you or email you or maybe even send you a letter if you have information that I need. But what if I don't know where the information that I need is found? That's where the fun starts, because it's in this field. It's just a number I've never dialed. It's in this field. And I have to first bring myself to believe that it exists. So how do I bring myself to believe that it exists? One way to do that is to hear the story of somebody like Dr. Charles Drew, for whom that information existed. To hear the stories of people who didn't know what their next step was going to be or where all of this was headed. I got story after story about this. Here's another one. This is of a musician who was a hero of mine when I was a little kid. You may have heard of him, named Burl Ives. Burl Ives. He was also an actor. And I had an orthopedic issue when I had a dislocated hip. I was born with a dislocated hip, which in those days they didn't really know how to treat, and so I had to go in the hospital for quite a while, and they had a body cast on me, and they put me on the floor, and we just had this long hall apartment where we lived with a kind of Persian runner on it, and I'd crawl up and down that, wear the cast out, and they'd have to go put another cast on. I wore the rug out too, and to entertain me, I'm like 2, 1.5, something like this. To entertain me, my grandmother had a little Victrola, and put on Burl Ives records, The Wayfaring Stranger. He had a radio show called The Wayfaring Stranger. Well, anyway, I'm getting off point here, but look up Burl Ives sometime because he's a fun, wonderful musician. And so he had a rich, distinguished career. He was Big Daddy in Cat in the Hot Tin Roof, did a bunch of Broadway and movies and stuff. Well, when he was in college, this is an example of where stuff comes and gets you. He decided I needed to go to college. His father was a farmer, and so it was a big deal for the son to go to college. He had brothers and sisters. I think he was the eldest, and so he's first. And he goes to Eastern Illinois University, which wasn't called that at the time. It was like Teachers College or something. And he's sitting in there. He spent a couple of years there. He's in his second year in college, and he's sitting there, and there's a lecture on Beowulf. Okay, Beowulf. And he thinks to himself, I am so in the wrong place. Okay, this is boring to tears. And he stands up, and he prepares to walk out of the class, and the instructor says something snarky to him as he's leaving, and Burl Ives slams the door behind him, and the glass shatters in the door. So now he's in trouble. And he has to replace the door and all, and now they don't want him back, see. Now he's pretty much. So he goes off and does all the stuff I told you. 60 years later, that university named a building for him. This is how it works. You can be sitting there thinking, I guess I got to learn Beowulf. And if that's not hard, try Canterbury Tales. Elfid, on and on. I guess I got to do what I got to do. Something, stand up and go. You don't have to break anything on the way out. But stand up and head off into your dream. Head off into... He wanted to sing. And so he went from that classroom to being an itinerant singer who wandered the country at the height of the Depression, making no money, basically sleeping on the ground, but singing until somebody heard him and put him in front of a microphone on the radio, and the rest was history. And then came the record albums, and then came everything else, okay? So there's stories. I got more of them I'll bring in for you. And in fact, we'll spend the rest of the year talking about it. Stories of people like you who all of a sudden, life came and got them. Ministers know this. Don't they, Reverend Lisa? Reverend David? Ministers know this. Life comes and gets you. You think you're doing what you came here to do now. But you're learning at what you're doing. Something that's going to be useful in what's coming next. That's always how it works. So I've got something to read to you from 10 Ideas. See how this floats your boat, as they say. God is not a person. God is a presence. That presence personifies in us as persons. That presence personifies in us as persons. We had a big conversation about this in this class the other night on Zoom about how it shows up as us. I think I was talking about it with you last Sunday too. God as us. We are the experience that God is having in this world at this time by means of us. We are personifications of the infinite on the level of what we call the human being. Personifications of the infinite, not just the mighty big, but the infinite. But some psychologists will say, yes, but we are the sum total of everything we have thought. Holmes says we are more than that. While we are the result of all that has gone before, we never could have reacted to what had gone on before unless there was something there to react. Is there an action without an actor? Is there a conscious knowledge without a consciousness? Is there a conscious knowledge without a consciousness? There's a meditation I sometimes have used in group settings where, I won't do it now because there's not time, but I'll spoil it for you anyway, where you imagine a large clear ball out in front of you, and you place into that everything you've got. You empty your pockets, you place your thoughts, you place your emotions, you place your body, you place your memories, you place, getting them out of order, but you get the picture. The shoes on your feet, everything you've got goes into that ball. And when you've put into it absolutely everything that you have, you realize that you're still sitting there looking at that ball. You see? So there's a consciousness back of everything that we assign meaning to. Consciousness back of body, form, mind, this, that, emotions. There's the great I am. The great I am is at the core of it. And the great I am is erupting in spontaneity in your life right now, in delightful ways, in childish sorts of ways. It likes to play with you. It likes to kind of dart out of corners at you. It's not another assignment. It's not another book, another reference, another Beowulf. With all due respect, Beowulf. It's not another thing like that. It's a teaser. It's come here, psst, hey, come here. Here's the magic. Here's the magic. Come follow. And you'll want to know where. Jim's movie tonight, that Danielle mentioned, it's about heroism or heroic. And later in the year, we'll do the hero's journey again. Break that down. But in the hero's journey, basically, it's you're never told where all this is leading. So where are we going? Just follow. Trust. So next week is about trust. Let's know together now, there is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit, everywhere manifesting, everywhere radiant, magnificent, like beautiful day like today. A nice day to not complain about the weather. It's not too cold, it's not too hot, it's just right. It's just right. And we may wonder, well, how long is it going to stay this way? Is it going to get cold tonight? Is it going to rain tomorrow? What's coming down the road? We don't know. But we're going to stand in the bliss and the beauty and the wonder of this amazing day and just say thank you. Thank you for all that has been, and yes to all that will be. Because something wonderful is happening right now through each one of us. Big creative ideas and a letting go, a release of anything that we've accumulated along the way that's outworn its usefulness. We are the experience that Spirit's having right now, right this very minute. It's not something it's about to do or wants to do or hopes to do or that comes when we're ready, but it is happening right now. And so we step into the midst of that stream of consciousness, a stream of love that carries us home. For this knowing and its manifestation in form, everywhere we turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you so much for that. So now, before we come to giving time, as our ushers make their way to the back, I would like to know, is there anyone here for the first time? Please raise your hand if you are. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of service. We'll have a nice little treat for you in a little bit, so hang around. And if you are online with us for the first time today, please let us know. You can put it in chats, or you can send us a message through Facebook Messenger, or even email us at info@creativelife.org to let us know. And so now we come to giving time. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here yet again, for your presence, for your energy, for your love, for your financial supports. We appreciate everything you do for us and with us. So with that, I invite you now to say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
All right. I had this really great treatment idea, and then I kept listening to Jesse, and I forgot what it was. So now we're just going to see what I say. But I was struck by a line that he said, I choose to live in. I choose to live in. So that's where I'm going to go with my treatment. Although I am going to say, if you would like individual treatment after the service, we have Monty Wilson on the phone, and I actually need a volunteer in the room. Oh, okay, well, both Marissa and Jim raised their hand at the same time, so. Oh, you did sign up for it. Okay, all right. So, thank you. So, Jim will meet you in the children's room in the back after the service. So, I choose to live in. I choose to live in knowing that there was going to be a volunteer. That's how that works. Sometimes it really is that easy. Life will tap you on the shoulder and come get you. Yeah, I ignored life for 10 years. And life just continually kept upping the pressure. Then finally one day I gave in, and life got better. So there is an art to surrender. So I'm going to know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And Jesse mentioned the energy swirling around us. So I'm stepping into that energy. I'm stepping into that love. I am knowing that that love, that one love, is what I am made up of. I am made by that love. I am made of that love, and I am made for that love. I choose to live in that love. And so I am speaking my word now for each and every living being in this universe, known and unknown, seen and unseen, to know who they are, to know that they are channels of divine love, to know that they are beloved children of that love. They are beloved children of spirit. They are beloved children of God. And that this is the state of grace that we live in. And the best thing about grace is it cannot be earned and it cannot be taken away. And this is where we live. We live in love. We live in grace. We live in harmony. We live in beauty. We live in peace. We live in joy. We live in each other. I choose to live as a channel of divine love. I choose to open myself up to what that means, to see where that love will take me, to see what that love will do with me. And I choose to know that each and every one of you know that love as well. That you are held in its arms, that you are held in its warmth, that you are healed in its presence. And that you know that love. And I know this with all of the gratitude in my being. I am grateful to know this love. I am grateful to be this channel. I am grateful for this teaching. I am grateful for this place. I am grateful for these people. I'm even grateful for the tech challenges that we have occasionally because it makes us feel alive. And I know this. And I release this, knowing that it is done, even as I speak these words. And so it is.
So it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my
I
mind.
feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.